Hi there. Sorry, welcome. I'm always startled by the fact that we're actually live. Um, anyway, hi. Welcome to the Spiral Lab live stream. It's the Jesse and Marta show again. We're really happy to have you here. We've been, our usual technical difficulties, or not difficulties, but just like stresses at the beginning of getting it all set up and trying to figure out our microphones.
We're getting there. I think this one might be the best. I hope.
The best yet, right? But it's always, I find that it's always like 2 steps forward, 1 step back. So I can't decide which glasses I should have on. Whether it's the glasses to read the computer screen, I think that I might be switching back and forth. I don't know. But this makes the camera look more,
oh no,
more able to be looked at.
Hi,
all right.
Whitney. It's echoing. Ugh.
Whitney, which microphone is echoing? Is it mine or is it Jesse's? Do we have
Yeah.
we have echo cancellation on? Huh. Shoot. Why is it that when we do a recording beforehand it doesn't echo?
I don't know. We did test it, I promise.
We totally tested it.
We did everything we're supposed to do.
Well, I don't know that there's Marta's voice is echoing.
Huh.
Isn't that weird?
Mm-hmm.
Huh. Maybe via Jesse's mic? I don't think so. All right, well, Jesse, you're going to have to do most of the talking.
Is it a lot or is it bearable?
Yeah, because we could also technology, exactly.
You're the one that's good at talking.
Well, let us know if it's too distracting, in which case we could like end the live stream and try to figure it out and then restart it. But if it's not too unbearable, then I think we're going to just keep going.
We need headphones. Did I bring my headphones?
Maybe you brought your headphones. Whitney says it's not terrible. Okay, well, great. Thank you, Whitney. I don't know if anybody else is out there. We have a whole bunch of thumbs up. So if anyone else is out there, say hi in the chat box. We love to get chats. It's much easier for us to know that there are people out there. But Whitney.
Thanks, Whitney.
Yeah, thank you. So anyway, a little stressed to get started, but hey, here we are. How are things going, Jessie?
Good. Yeah? Pretty good. My zucchinis are like massive and I'm kind of like scared.
Do you actually
and how big they are?
Or just
no, like the plant.
Yeah.
Yeah, no flower. Like I think there's like a beginning of a flower bud. But yeah.
Yeah. No, that happened to me last year that the zucchinis got so big that like it sort of took over the garden. And it's one of the reasons actually that maybe I have like zucchini trauma or something.
You don't want to grow them now?
Well, not so much that I don't want to grow zucchini, but that like we had 4 raised beds and I had this idea that it was still going to be like a space that we could be in, but it turned out that like the plant between the tomatoes and the zucchinis, they just sort of took over the whole yard. Like there was no space to be. So anyway, I'm working on a vlog about my garden. I know you're working on a vlog about your garden, right? So we can show people soon what's going on. Let's see who's here. Amanda says, last time I think it was the same mic, the one on Marta's side, because you were sitting opposite. No, but the thing is that is Jesse's mic and this is my mic. So we switched them. Like, we are with the same mics. Maybe it's something about the side that it's on. I don't know. But anyway, Spiral Nerd says, I don't think it's too distracting. It's just a little bit. Also, hi. Hi, Bug. Hi. It's great to have you here. Thanks. We will really figure this out one of these days, and we're sorry. Amanda says, also hi. Hi, Amanda.
The live streams are rough drafts, right?
Right. Well, that's exactly.
Just kinda,
yeah. How
Practice.
I think about it. That the live streams are rough drafts for what we hope to eventually be video essays. Like that's the plan, is that we would like this to be like a live stream and video essay channel.
Mm-hmm.
And that the live streams sort of serve as us just kind of talking out ideas that then eventually turn into video essays. But what we're learning is that making video essays is quite
hard.
a steep learning curve.
It's really hard.
It's hard. Like, props to all the people out there, all the channels out there who make it look so easy, right? Like, I mean, I have, like, there's some channels, like one of the video essay channels that I just love is ContraPoints.
But those are like full feature film productions.
She makes it look easy in that they're so well done. But even if you don't know anything, watching one of her films that wasn't easy.
Yeah. Well, but also if you look back through her, like, I think she's been on YouTube for like 6 years.
Yeah.
And like if you can like see like the progression. So like it takes years to
develop that kind of.
Yeah. I think it's important to remember because we compare ourselves a lot.
Right.
And don't consider how much time it took for a person to like get to that point,
Exactly. It is hard. So one of the things that we're doing is doing vlogs in the meantime to sort of get some practice and some skills, and also, at least in my case, to sort of ramp up to a video essay that I want to do. So I just started last week. What is it? Yeah, a week. Gosh, I can't even. I'm so disoriented in time.
It's the 23rd.
Today is Thursday. It was just Tuesday, 2 days ago, that I published my first vlog in a new vlog series that I'm calling Divergent Design Vlogs. If you haven't seen that, you should go take a look. I'm really excited about it. Some people are watching it. I mean, it's not like, it's not like it's taking off or anything, but I was afraid that like literally nobody would watch it and that I would feel bad, even though I told myself that you're just doing this to learn how to make videos. But the truth is that we want people to watch our things when we make them. So I'm very gratified that like last time I checked, it was like 125 people had viewed it, at least a part of it. And my plan is to come out with a new vlog in that series once a week on Tuesdays. And what I'm hoping to do, the plan is that I'm sort of building up to a video essay, which I think will be my first real video essay about divergent design. As featured in Devin Price's book, Unmasking Autism, and also in lots of places in my own work, obviously. And I don't know, maybe this fall? I just found out, adding to the stress of my day, I just found out that there's some things that I have to do this summer that I thought I could put off until the fall and that I can't. And so like my summer just got a lot more complicated, and I'm going to have a lot less bandwidth than I thought I was. So I don't know, maybe it's going to be later than the fall before I actually get to that video essay. But the vlogs I'm having fun with, I'm learning a lot. How about you? You're working on a vlog too.
Yeah. I think I'm making it too complicated, which I always do. But I think I have like 4 minutes of it done, and then I wanted to add some of you into it.
Oh.
And then it's gonna, I took it was kind of like a document of how it started, and then it's gonna be how it's going.
The garden, you mean?
Yeah. So it'll be cool because I have like the first kind of section of it is just like dirt. Like there's like nothing there. But now it's like exploding, and there's like all these plants and greenery and giant. Yeah. So like it's kind of cool. And I think it's only been like a month that I've like, since I like planted stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of just astounded that actually happens. Like
I know, it's like a miracle every time you plant a seed and it comes up and it turns into something much less. Like wait till you're eating the stuff from the plants.
I brought you something.
Oh yeah?
That I forgot to give you, but I'll just
I'm excited.
Microgreens.
Oh my gosh! You did it.
Yeah.
You grew.
I grew something, and you can eat it.
Food. We're gonna have it for dinner, I think. Look at that, people. Look at that. Isn't that exciting?
They're like just microgreens that you put them in a tray in the window, basically, and then they just sprout. And they're like just like baby plants. So I think it's like broccoli, arugula, radish. Like it's a It's a spicy mix.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to.
What the packet said.
Joel is gonna be so excited about this. That's exciting. Oh, speaking of which, the other thing that's coming up that's new at the Spiral Lab, at least we're giving it a try, is that Joel and I are going to do a cooking show on Sundays, Sunday afternoons, a live stream cooking show that we're calling The Dish. That's our new name for it. Where we're going to not only show some like simple recipes that are not too difficult to make, but also talk about like living with disability and chronic pain, neurodivergence, and stuff like that. So this coming Sunday, Joel especially lives with a lot of chronic pain, physical pain. So he's going to talk about that and how he like manages that, especially around like he's the main cook in our family. So anyway, that might be interesting. That's going to be, I think, Sundays at 2:00 Eastern time. I hope that some of you will be interested in watching that. So anyway, that's a bunch of stuff that's coming up. And finally, I also wanted to say, did you know that we have a Patreon for the Spiral Lab? It used to be my Patreon, which I was completely neglecting, and about, I don't know, 70 people continued to support me through months and months and months of neglect, and I'm so grateful to those patrons. But I decided that we would shift that Patreon over to be a Spiral Lab Patreon. And we would love your support if you're in a position to be able to give that. Right now, the Spiral Lab does not even pay for itself. So we are paying out of pocket to basically produce this show and the rest of the stuff that we do at the Spiral Lab, even though we do have some sources of income between the Patreon and we're monetized on AdSense. So if you watch our videos without a YouTube Prime, we're sorry about the ads. We know they're annoying, but they do help us pay for the channel. So, so the long and the short of it is, and you know, it's uncomfortable to talk about money, and it's uncomfortable to ask people for money. But the truth is that like our budgets are pretty tight right now, and we love what we're doing, and we want to keep doing it. In fact, we'd like to make this be our work, we'd love for it to eventually be income producing. But right now, like I said, it's not even paying for itself. Because, you know, there's lots of stuff. Like you have to pay for the editing software, and you have to pay for the transcription software for captions, and you have to pay for the live streaming software. Like there's all these expenses that go with producing something like this. Not even talking about the microphones and the cameras and all of that. So anyway, we'd love to have you join our Patreon. And very soon, probably not, maybe even next week, but certainly the week after that, I'm going to start having a sort of credits roll at the end of our videos that acknowledges all of the patrons. And then there's this other thing that you can do. If you get a lot of value from our channel and you just feel like giving us a tip, sort of, I think, I could be wrong about this because I've never actually done it, but I think there is this so-called super chat feature where you could actually like give us a tip through the chat. I don't know how it works, but I just thought I would mention it. Again, it feels awkward, but I thought I would mention it. Anyway, moving right along to the topic for the week. So last week, if you watched, Jesse and I talked about this little book. I should have it with me. But anyway, it was called The Dysfunctionality of Executive Function. And it's by Dr. Miriam. We're just going to call her Dr. Miriam because we don't know how to say her last name. All that information is in the description of last week's live stream video, which if you didn't have a chance to see, it's doing really well, relatively speaking. And we're really proud of it. And it was I thought it was a great conversation. We had a great time with folks in the chat. And it was all just about how the entire executive functioning paradigm or model of how we should be in the world is really quite dysfunctional. Like just in general, even on just a theoretical level, much less in the lives of neurodivergent people. So this week, we thought we would talk a little bit more personally and less kind of academically about how we quote unquote fixed our executive dysfunction. And yeah, that's a totally clickbaity title. But you know what? Clickbaity titles like that really do work. And they bring people to the channel, and then people come to the channel because of the titles, and then they actually get some new ideas. And anyway.
Sorry if you got baited.
Yeah, sorry if you got baited.
We didn't fix it. We just opted out.
Right. I guess that's more of what we should say is how we opted out. But I do think it's a little bit more complicated than that. So what I want to say is that, just in a nutshell, sort of our thesis for today, and then we'll just sort of talk and tell stories. And I'm going to stop in just a minute and let Jessie do all the talking, because they're like more interesting and have a better microphone than I do.
I disagree.
Anyway, the thesis, I think, is that, at least for me, my experience has been that shame and anxiety are the real sources of my executive dysfunction. To the extent that I have executive dysfunction. And I can talk a little bit about that, about how I've sort of experienced myself through most of my adult life as being pretty, what we would call executive dysfunctional, right? Like, and we can talk about that in a minute. But I have come to realize that the real sources of that executive dysfunction are shame and anxiety. And in fact, even just like today with like this thing that happened, like I mentioned earlier, something has come up where I have a lot more to do this summer than I thought I did. And there have been some other sort of stressors in my life, especially not incidentally around money. And like I'm forgetting things, I'm losing things, I'm distracted, I'm doing, like the other day I ran the dishwasher half full because I was just like on automatic pilot and just started it. And then I was like, wait, it wasn't time to run the dishwasher. Just like stuff like that doesn't really happen to me anymore. But like, and just like feeling too anxious to like focus and do my work. Like that kind of shame and anxiety, that kind of dysfunction for me is usually the result of shame and anxiety. And then what's interesting and what's a little counterintuitive is that I believe that for the most part, my own shame and anxiety are precisely the result of the executive functioning paradigm that we talked about last week, right? The dysfunctional executive functioning paradigm. So this paradigm of our society that kind of demands and expects that we perform our lives like quickly and at high speed and with a single-minded focus and in this super linear way, and that we be really productive and that we not rest and that we not have leisure. Like all of that, all of the demands of that executive functioning paradigm are, ironically, precisely the cause of executive dysfunction, at least in my life. So in a nutshell, if you got baited and you want to leave, or you want to know there
will be no life hacks today.
Right. Well,
Sorry.
We might talk about a few things, but the upshot is that the way to fix your executive dysfunction is to reject the executive functioning paradigm, and to like do a better, to do, I was going to say better, but I don't want to put it in those terms, to be able to manage your anxiety a little bit more and to disrupt shame a little bit more. And that to the extent that you can start doing those things, our experience has been that we're more able to function in the world, even on, I mean, not entirely on neurotypical terms, and certainly with lots of support. And we want to talk about that specifically. But let's really quickly look at the comments.
Oh, we have another
comment. Just say hi to people. Kitty Litter Zen Garden says, good day. Hi there.
Kitty
nice to see you. Is that a great handle? They're here almost every week. That's great. Amanda says, oh, never mind. I don't know then. That was about the switched microphones. Marta Bratek, my namesake in London. So nice to see you. Princess Bride says, "Oh my God, I usually listen at double speed, no echo." Huh? Now I hear the echo.
That's interesting.
I may have to go and come back in 20 minutes to listen at double speed again. That's funny. I don't know what's going on then. Yeah, we did.
Very weird,
isn't it? We did it.
Yeah. Can we try to turn off the echo cancellation and see if that does anything?
Okay, right now, turning off echo cancellation in our streaming software.
Is it doing anything?
And tell us.
Is it different?
Tell us when you hear this, whether or not it's better. I don't know what that was. In the meantime, Moira says, "Hi, all from the UK." And Sternchen Etoile. Sorry if I'm slaughtering that. Says, "I don't think any of us expected easy life hacks from you."
Oh, good.
I mean, I feel like I do have some sort of hacks and strategies that work, but I really also do feel like the only reason that they work
is
gone. Oh, great.
Cool.
All right, well then let's leave that off.
Doesn't it make sense that turning off the echo cancellation would work, but okay.
Go figure. Hi from Germany. Hi, it's great to see you from Germany. ECS says, "Hi, great to see you two in the same room." Yeah, we're having a great time. You know, Jesse just recently moved to the Philadelphia area, and it is making collaboration much easier. Do you have strategies for disrupting shame?
Yes, you do.
Yes, I do. Well, we can talk about that for sure. And I think that, like, basically, I just read to you our entire outline for the live, and the rest of it is just going to be us talking and chatting and telling stories. And we can probably get into some strategies for disrupting shame. But I will also say, Moira, that I have a workshop that I do inside of Divergent Design Studios about shame. But the last time I did it, which I think was maybe in February, I did it as a live stream, and you can go find it. I think it was in February, as just as a recorded video. I think it's called something like "The Role of Shame in Neurodivergent Lives." So that might also be a good resource for you. The sound is better, much clearer. The audio seems a little clearer.
Okay,
it's gone for me too. Oh. Yeah, I think that might have made it better. Fantastic.
Okay.
Oh, the echo is getting better when you are closer to the mic. Okay. Here I go. I'm sorry I'm not putting these things up. I should probably take that one down. Way better now. Not sure if you clicked it yet. Yeah. Hi, everyone. Oh, hi, Kent. Nice to see you. Atomic Softness says, "Hi from Spain. So excited to catch you live." And Sternchen and I don't know how to pronounce French.
I feel like it's
Etoile,
but maybe I'm just making that up.
Both mean star in German and French. So that's lovely. I love that. Thank you. And Yarrow says, "Hello, I'm late, but I'm glad I caught you live. Also, yeah, no echo now." This is like quite the international, especially European audience. We have people from the UK, from Spain, Germany. Yarrow is in Poland. This is very exciting, folks. Wow. All right. So probably we should start talking about what the people came to hear us talk about. But hey, like I said, we don't really have so much of an agenda as we're just going to like tell some stories maybe. And we don't even really have a list of stories yet. But ask questions or tell us your own stories or whatever insights or thoughts you have. As always, put those in the comments because this is much more fun when it's an exchange.
My favorite part of these is just like the comments and then like going back and forth.
Yeah.
Very fun.
All right, so I have talked ad nauseum, as is my way. So, Jessie, do you have anything that like you want to share about sort of like how life was like before you before you started to understand yourself as neurodivergent and started to understand executive function as a problem, not a solution?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really have any awareness of any of this until like a couple years ago. So like in high school and college, I took Adderall because I couldn't concentrate on like tests and writing papers and anything that made me like have to sit and do something like a task like from A to B. And I kind of like intuitively realized that like I couldn't do kind of like 9 to 5 office-y type jobs that other people could do. So I worked like in restaurants, like waiting tables and bartending. And that was really like it worked with, because I'm like nocturnal. So I couldn't ever work jobs where I like had to get up in the morning because I would just constantly be late. So that really worked for me because like I worked at a bar where like I would start at 5 and I would get off at like 3 a.m. But I was like more awake at those times and like better able to just like do things. And I think like waiting tables is also a very kind of like, it lends itself better to kind of a spirally non-linear way because you're literally like circling a room and like checking on stuff and like,
yeah, I can see that.
You know, instead of just like sitting and trying to focus on one thing, you're multitasking. And so like that worked a lot better for me. So I just kind of intuitively realized like, oh, there are certain jobs I can do and certain jobs that I can't. But I still tried to work office jobs, like, because I'm a writer. So I tried to do, like, I worked at a magazine and I worked at a newspaper. But I realized that the only way I could make those jobs work was to multitask, like to write like 3 or 4 pieces at once and kind of flip back and forth between them and like not write in an office. I would like go places. I would go to like coffee shops and like, or I would sit in bed and work and like stuff like that. So, but I didn't have any awareness of like what that was. It was just all very like, oh, I can do this in this way easier. And I just kind of like shaped my life around that.
Yeah.
Because that's what like worked for me. I don't know. And then also for a while, I kind of was like, okay, because like I would work jobs and then in like 5 months or so, I think it would be kind of like my limit where I'd be like, I can't do this anymore. I'm like having like breakdowns all the time and like whatever. So for a while in my 20s, I looked at work as like a seasonal thing where I would be like, I'm going to work like a ton for these like months. And then I'm like not going to work at all. And like I would like save a bunch of money and then like not work and then save a bunch of money. And I also like freelanced, so I would have like gigs in between and stuff. So I kind of made all of that work somehow. But I didn't know to call it executive dysfunction or whatever until like I stumbled on all of this discourse on Instagram, really. But yeah, I don't know. Does that answer the
no, absolutely. I feel like there are some resonances with me, but also some major differences in my past. Like I feel like in terms of school, that was never really too much of an issue for me. Like I always did really well in school, and the ways that my neurodivergence or my executive dysfunction showed up in school, and I've talked about this before on the live stream, was more in terms of sort of larger research projects, like being able to like to corral a lot of research and keep track of it, and then formulate a thesis and use that research and draw from it. Like that was always a struggle, but like in high school it wasn't really an issue because we didn't have to do that in any kind of meaningful way. And by the time I got to college, I discovered pretty early that those kinds of projects were really difficult for me. So I just sort of avoided the courses that I would need to do that kind of research project for. But I do have a sort of academic, I don't know how to turn that off.
Sorry.
Yeah, sorry that my computer is chiming and I'm not sure what to do about it. I wonder if I turn this off.
Oh yeah.
If I do that? Okay. I hope that I just muted my computer. I'm assuming that didn't also mute the live stream. That would be just like me. You'll let us know, right? If suddenly the live stream goes mute. Anyway, so like I have a sort of academic and theoretical mind, and like that was definitely an avenue that I really wanted to pursue. You know, like I really wanted to go on and get a PhD and study and basically do the kind of work that I do now, but in a more formal and recognized way. And I wasn't able to do that at all. But I think that maybe it's partly good. Good, we're not muted. It's partly, I think, maybe, I don't know, it could be family expectations. I don't know. But I think that in my family of origin and in my kind of community, like the circle of friends that I was part of, and also maybe because I had done really well in school, there was this strong expectation that I would pursue a profession, you know, not necessarily an office-y profession, although most of them are, but that I would pursue a profession, and that like the possibility of doing something else, like waiting tables or I don't know, it never really occurred to me. So I was just constantly trying to find some sort of profession that I could survive in, but I couldn't really.
Well, I guess I went to art school, but like I studied fine arts. So like in college, I had an understanding that I would have to wait tables or like do some kind of job like that because artists, like it's really, really hard to make any kind of a living as like art. A fine artist, especially. Yeah. So like I think that also shaped a lot of, and also like you were talking about research projects. I didn't really have to do those in college because I was doing art. So it was like art projects and like thesis, like photography stuff and like, so I kind of avoided that. Or they would be like, you can write a paper or you can like make something, you can do a painting or whatever. So
you always did option B.
Or make a video instead or like whatever,
Yeah, and like I didn't discover myself as an artist at all, like any sort of an artist, until like my mid 40s, you know, and it was such a revelation then when I started writing fiction and then later started making visual art and now making, like I very much think of making videos now. And we were talking at the beginning of the live stream about making video essays and how complicated it is and what a steep learning curve it is. But it's very much right now the art that I want to be making. So it feels worth investing in learning how to do that. Like you can make quick and dirty videos. Like people, you know, make videos on their iPhones and edit them in iMovie, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. But like I'm actually interested in this being my primary making, like my primary like artistic expression right now. But I didn't have any of that before. Like I was in awe of artists, but I didn't think that I was an artist for most of my adult life. I thought that I was just the smart girl who was going to be who's meant to be a professional, right? Who was meant to become a professor or a lawyer, which I did become, but then failed spectacularly at actually doing. I mean, that was the thing, is that I always failed spectacularly at actually executive functioning in any kind of professional arena. And even in my sort of my hobbies and special interests, like I felt like I had never stuck with anything. I never followed through with anything. I never became an expert at anything. You know, like I never became really, like I dabbled all the time.
Yes, I'm a dabbler too.
And I thought that there was something wrong with that, you know? So because I think it's because I felt like I was doing everything wrong. I didn't hone in on a profession. I didn't succeed in any particular job. I wasn't even like really good at any of the things that I dabbled in. I just felt a lot of like failure and shame and then anxiety also around things like paying bills and keeping house and keeping on track of my kids' schedules and like all of that stuff. It just created so much shame and anxiety that I really think that like it became this sort of self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Where like the things that I was already not very good at became much worse because of the shame and anxiety.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think like all of my procrastination, or like not starting things and not finishing them, has to do with shame and and anxiety. Like I'm worried about something, and so that's why I'm like avoiding it. And I think a lot of the discourse about not finishing things kind of ignores that completely. Mm-hmm. And that's like the whole thing for me. I've realized.
Yeah, right. Mm-hmm. Like I think so too for me, that like not being able to, like, that I really want to. Somebody asked, who was it that asked about, Moira was asking about strategies for disrupting shame. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of it is just like understanding how shame works, and then learning how to reframe and kind of get on top of it before it gets on top of you, right? Mm-hmm. So like understanding the connection between shame and avoidance has been really key for me. That when I find myself avoiding something mm-hmm. over and over, especially if it's something that in theory I want to do, right? I very quickly now ask myself, what is the source of shame around this? Mm-hmm. Like, why are you avoiding this?
Yeah, like why is like the question.
Right.
And people will call it different things, like ADHD paralysis is a big term that people are using now. And to me, it's just like overwhelm when people describe that. Yeah. It's like you're describing being overwhelmed, and like, but you're not asking why. Like, why do I feel
right?
Like, because, and I think a lot of it is because like we think it's things that we're supposed to be able to do, that are supposed to be easy.
Right.
So we don't even think to question, because it's kind of like a given, like that's an easy thing, like you should be able to do it, so it must be some kind of like brain dysfunction or something.
Yeah, for sure. I had a thought that's going to come back to me in just a second about the stuff that's supposed to be easy. Oh yeah, that like I think a big part of the whole executive functioning paradigm that both of us have quite effectively, I think, rejected, is that things should happen fast, mm-hmm. right? Yeah. And that like efficiency and productivity, and that sort of grind culture, right? That like the solution to not getting things done mm-hmm. and not finishing things and not being productive is to work harder, to bear down on it, mm-hmm. to grind, to not rest.
Yeah.
Right. And whereas I think that we both have found, I'll let Jessie speak for themselves, but mm-hmm. that like the exact opposite is often true. That if you let yourself slow down, if you let yourself rest, if you change your expectations about what finished is and how long it's going to take you to get there, mm-hmm. then suddenly it sort of becomes possible.
Yeah. I always say just take your expectations, bring them down to the floor, and then you won't fail, because it'll be like for my garden, my expectation is I just want to eat one vegetable that I grew from a seed. And I feel like that is super possible.
You've already done it.
I guess, yeah, I did it this morning. That counts. So there you go.
If you weren't here at the beginning of the stream, Jessie brought me microgreens that they grew all by themselves.
Yeah. So yeah. Success. But yeah, lowering expectations and just like doing less, I think, is the thing. It's not about figuring out how to do everything or how to do more. It's just doing less things.
Right. And I think we live in a culture that that tells us that, oh, now if you're lowering your expectations, like, no, you should raise your people, like, you know, rise the levels of our expectations. And
we're very aspirational.
Yeah. But I think that like what is, like, there's that expression, don't let good get in the way of, no, don't let perfect get in the way of good. Mm-hmm. Right. Like doing, like, I will find myself being like, oh, I can't try that thing. I can't slow down because I have too much to do. Mm-hmm. Right. But if I don't slow down and I'm in that, like, I have too much to do mode, I get nothing done. Mm-hmm. Whereas if I slow down, I get something done.
Yeah.
And I'm really coming to understand that something is better than nothing. And especially when the something can happen at a pace and in a sort of way that like doesn't feel so racy and angsty and, you know?
There's a book that I like called An Outsider's Guide to Humans by Dr. Camilla Pang. And she's autistic and a scientist. I forget what kind of scientist. But there's a chapter about like the second law of thermodynamics, which is that like everything tends toward entropy, or like, which in science has like a very specific meaning about energy, but like colloquially just like things will tend to fall apart. And so she writes this chapter about keeping her room clean, and how like the natural state is for the room to like fall into like disorder. Right. And to create order, you need energy. And so like you have to think of it as like a trade-off of like your energy, and kind of prioritize, because like, especially if you have limited energy, like a lot of us do, you have to kind of prioritize and like, what are the things that I can live with, like being in disorder, because that's always going to keep happening, because that's just the, like, it's one of the laws of thermodynamics, you know? And I really liked that kind of science-y take on it.
I love that. I just wrote it down, and look what I just wrote it down on. Look what my notes are on the back of. Do you see?
Oh,
it's the envelope that I get.
Our addresses.
Oh, sorry. You're right. I'll see. I might have to go. I might have to go and. Oh, it's your old. No, it isn't.
It's not my actual address. It's a.
Okay.
It's a mailbox, but.
All right.
Yeah, it's my letter.
Yeah. So if you, this is a little spirally distraction. I just noticed that Jessie has a great sticker club. And I just found a whole bunch of them. I was going through a drawer and came up with found all of these stickers, these great stickers that Jessie sends to their sticker club, along with a really nice little letter.
I have been quietly doing it for like a long time. I like never advertise it, but it's just this like fun little club that I have. Yeah.
So is that part of your Substack newsletter, or is that still attached to your Patreon?
It's Patreon.
Okay. So if you're interested in getting a letter in the mail, a snail mail letter in the mail, and some stickers every month from Jessie. But I had a point, and now I've completely lost it. What was I talking about before I noticed that?
It'll come back.
It will. It'll come back. Why don't we look at some comments? That's always a good thing to do, right? Another European. Hi, Greece via the UK here too. Mama Sophia, so nice to see you. Karma. I'm sorry.
Karma Coma Cure?
Yeah. Karma Coma Cure. Part of the problem is that I have on the wrong glasses. There we go. Hi from Colorado. Ken says, for me, it's hard working retail jobs because the schedules are all over the place. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's a huge downside.
Yeah.
Because they don't, like, managers will just change stuff.
Yeah.
Every week randomly. It doesn't make any sense. They'll make you like open, where you have to close and then you also have to open.
Oh my God, that's
like,
awful.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a terrible part of retail.
My son works in retail, and for the most part, it's a pretty good fit for him. But he's 19, and he's sort of starting the next phase of his life. He's not going to college, and he still sends me his schedule each week. And some people think, oh, you're mollycoddling him, whatever. But like, no. Like that's just a really hard thing to keep track of. Yeah. And it's something that I can keep track of. So I just put it in my calendar, and he still lives with me. He's going to be moving out soon. I'm not sure how that's going to work. But yeah, I just make sure he's up. And most of the time he is, but like,
does it change?
It changes all the time. Yeah. Or not every week, but it's like even every day. Like some days he starts at noon, some days he starts at 9. Like it's just all over the place. And the days of the week all change. Like it is a little bit of an ADHD nightmare for sure.
Yeah.
And 963 says, I'll put my other glasses on. Do you struggle with sensory issues? How do you advocate for yourself in an employment situation when so many people don't get it? like, yes, I can hold it together for a while, but it's so detrimental. That's a big one for sure. And
I never really figured out how to do that, to be honest. It's like really hard.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the big reasons why working out in the world is so difficult is precisely like my sort of whole hypothesis about neurodivergence is that we're just acutely sensitive people, like that we just have fewer filters and that we take in more of everything. And so we do just get really overwhelmed by sensation really fast.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's why we both are trying to carve out a life for ourselves where we can work from home and work for ourselves. But this, like we were talking before the live stream started, that very much depends on being supported by other people, both financially, but in other ways as well.
Yeah.
And so, like, one of the things that we're absolutely not saying is that, like you can pull yourself up from your bootstraps.
You can do it all by yourself. Yeah.
Like, you can overcome your executive dysfunction by rejecting executive function, and you can do it all on your own. I mean, that's part of the executive functioning paradigm.
Yeah.
Is this extreme individualism, this like anti-communitarianism is really baked into that executive functioning paradigm. And that, like, that's part of what we both have rejected in trying to sort of craft and design a different sort of life for ourselves. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't ever want people to think that I'm saying like, you can do this all alone, because I don't. I need my partner and like my friends and
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. And the economic piece is the hardest one. Like, that's like, I have all kinds of thoughts and ideas about how how neurodivergent people, disabled people can design lives that work better for us. But like, how to just basically support ourselves as disabled people in capitalism is really hard. And I just want you to know that to the extent that you're not succeeding at it and have financial insecurity and all the rest of it, like, I've been there, Jesse's been there, we could easily be there again. And yeah, it's just tough. That's the nut still to be cracked, I feel like, in kind of all of my theories about designing lives that really work outside of, neuronormative society. I do still believe, though, that the key has to lie in collective action and in solidarity and in, as much as we can, in given the circumstances that we live in, disrupting shame and calming anxiety and rejecting that paradigm, right? You can't do it perfectly, especially if you're alone and especially if you have to support yourself financially. But I still believe that, like, finding each other and engaging in collective liberatory action is the answer, as much of an answer as there is.
But I don't know, like, as far as sensory stuff, I guess it depends, like, what your sensitivities are. Like, earplugs, I think, are maybe an easy one. You can get the some that, like, are really not noticeable if that's, like, something you're anxious about. And, like, for me, it's lights. Like, I can't work in an office that is, like, has super bright lights. I don't really know what can be done about that if you do work in, like, a really big open space. There's a lot to be said about design in terms of, like, offices and stuff, because I think all this stuff really is bad for everyone. Like, sensory sensitive design is good for just humans in general, I think. But maybe if you have somewhere you could, like, dim the lights, or you could, like, ask to go work somewhere else, maybe ask about working from home. I know it's, like, becoming a lot more acceptable now to do that. So
Yeah.
I don't know. But yeah, I don't have, like, specifics because I can't do
Right.
any of that. So
Right.
I never like really learned how to advocate because I just kind of removed myself from those kinds of jobs.
Yeah. Yeah, same. Well, I mean, either removed myself. I mean, I feel like I either was either fired or I prophylactically quit because I was going to be fired from pretty much every job that I've ever had.
Yeah.
Like, and like, I just became so dysfunctional that I couldn't work anymore. So sometimes I feel like a poser when I think of myself as disabled and unable to work in the world. But that's only because I don't work in the world. You know, like I am functional precisely because I'm not in one of those jobs. If I were in one of those jobs, I wouldn't be here for sure. I wouldn't be running DDS. I wouldn't be making critical theory. Like I wouldn't be able to do any of the things that I do if I also worked a job that could financially support myself.
Yeah, I write in bed like a lot, like in the dark in bed a lot because I'm just like very sensitive and sometimes I just can't be in light. But like it's weird because when I feel overwhelmed like in a sensory way, if I go back to bed with my laptop, like I can suddenly think again and it's fine.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I take a lot of naps, cat naps. Mama Sophia says, can either of you speak of menopause and ADHD?
I cannot.
I can. I'm just going to put Adina's comment up, which says that my ADHD symptoms improved with menopause. So, but to get back to the question, well, I had very early menopause, so I was done menstruating by the time I was in my mid 40s, and I'm now in my mid 50s, so it's been at least a decade. I'm sorry about this. I feel like it's like a lack of empathy or something on my part, but I literally forget that people menstruate and that's something that people cope with still on a regular basis. I didn't understand myself as neurodivergent until after I had gone through menopause. So I can't talk about like a consciousness of how things changed for me through menopause. But I do think that it's probably not a coincidence that I sort of came into myself in a way and then into my understanding of my neurodivergence post-menopause. I haven't read it in a while, and sometimes things that I thought were great before, when I reread them, it turns out that they're not great anymore because like my thinking has changed so much. But I do remember this great article. I think it was in the Atlantic Monthly, and I think it was called "The Bitch Is Back." And the thesis of the article was that that we think of menopause as being this change from like the what is normal for female humans to a changed state that is no longer normal after menopause. And she was arguing that we live so long now that actually the period of fertility is the not normal state, is the changed state. And that like what all of those sort of fertility hormones, and this is where, I don't know, it might be that I no longer subscribe to it, but she's just arguing that like there is this sort of state of womanhood that is expected of women who are fertile that may or may not be driven by hormones, that is like you're nurturing and you're relational and that you're caretaking and all of those things. And that post-menopause, she argues, women stop being that. And that is actually normal, or we could frame it anyway as normal. And that we can like kind of like again, the title is "The Bitch Is Back." Like we can embrace ourselves as like self-interested, autonomous, dynamic human beings outside of the constriction of the expectations of premenopause. So anyway, I loved that article because I do feel like I had that experience of like, oh, it's okay for me to just be myself and focus on myself. And I don't know if that has anything to do with menopause actually, but it did definitely have to do with like a shift in a period of my life that happened to coincide with menopause. and was also the period of time that I came to understand myself as neurodivergent. So yeah, beyond that, I can't really speak specifically. I think that there must be some literature out there, but I've become more and more skeptical of the whole like
there's a lot of stuff about
hormonal discourse. Yeah.
And how they, yeah. I've also read there's like a famous anthropology study about how like menopause experiences are cultural. And the study I think looked at like women in Japan who like don't experience the same stuff that like women in America experience, like even like hot flashes, I think.
Interesting.
We're not experiencing. So
yeah.
It's also a cultural thing.
Yeah. I think that at least in our culture, for many women, not all women, of course, but many women are, the intensive period of parenting is ending often around the same time that you're going through menopause. And so it's hard to know whether like the freedom that comes from no longer so intensively parenting, like whether it's that or whether it's hormones or whatever.
Like the context changes.
The context changes.
Yeah.
I mean, that was definitely what happened to me, is that the context changed dramatically in my life around the same time that I experienced menopause. So, and I didn't have a very rough time of it. And I was never somebody like, and I don't mean to disparage women who feel a mystical relationship to their menstrual cycle. That's great. I was not that woman at all. And in fact, when I discovered that I was infertile, like I went through, I had tried to get pregnant, had 2 miscarriages, did fertility testing, turned out I was never going to carry a pregnancy to term. That was a really hard thing in my life, blah, blah, blah. It all turned out fine. But when I realized that I was never going to carry a pregnancy to term, I was like, what the hell? Like, what has this all been for? And so I was very, very happy to be done when I was done, which was early, which was actually related to my infertility. So, anyway, entropy. You were talking about entropy when I lost track of something, but it's still not bringing it back. Entropy. About the messy room.
Mm-hmm.
Now I remember that it was something related to that. Oh, I just had a recent experience. So Jessie was telling me about, what was the name of that? That's what I wrote on the back of that. Thank you, Adina. That triggered it for me.
An Outsider's Guide to
An
Humans.
Outsider's Guide to Humans, which I totally want to read. I feel like one of the ways that like my lessening of executive dysfunction has manifested in my life is that, like, you would never know it. Today, Jessie walked through my home and saw what it's basically exploded. But on the whole, I'm able to keep my home in a sort of orderly and clean enough that I don't feel any shame about it, and I feel fairly comfortable in it, which is a stark departure from most of my life. I've never been able to do that before, and now I can. But recently I realized I started to wonder if I had overcorrected, like if I was paying too much attention to cleaning and keeping things tidy, and that it was interfering with my art and with my like designing in my garden. And so recently I sort of did an intentional experiment of letting things go so that I could focus, especially on the garden. And indeed, like I can't do it all. You can't do it all. You do have to make choices. Like, I've been working intensively in my garden. It's looking great. My house is a complete and utter disaster area. There you have it. I don't feel shame anymore about it, especially because it's a choice that I'm making. But it is interesting. Like, you can't do it all.
Yeah.
You
and
can't.
Also, like, those tasks never end.
Right.
There will always be something to clean and, like, something to organize. And it's like...
Exactly.
I don't know. Just, like, do the bare minimum you need
to feel comfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly, for sure. Anyway, thank you. Sorry, that was my clock telling us that we are now at the top of the hour, but we're going to keep going for a little while. Kent says, fired from my last job because I couldn't keep up with the production expectations, currently unemployed, and I almost don't want to look for work because I feel like I'm just going to get fired again. Yeah, Kat, I feel you. That's tough.
Mm-hmm.
That's so tough. And I have definitely been there. Yeah. I'm not sure what the answer is to that at all. At all. Olive says, it bothers me how much of capitalist mental health focuses on independence. Yeah. And it seems like a lot of the executive dysfunction paradigm comes from that. It's hard to accept that I might need care.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I feel that really deeply. Like right now, Joel, my husband Joel, is the primary financial breadwinner in our family. And I've been in that situation in the past, in my previous marriage. And there's always been this sort of understanding that in the past and in this situation, that we both support each other in various ways based on sort of our strengths and capacities as two disabled people making a life together.
Mm-hmm.
And he is able to function in the workplace and earn a living. And I do lots of other things that we together sort of understand are equally important to sort of the functioning of our lives, to the meaningfulness of our lives, to the enjoyment and the pleasure and the health of our lives, right? But it's a precarious position to be in because that's what I thought was happening in my previous marriage too. Like those were the promises that were made, and when the marriage fell apart, so did the promises. And my ex was the one who was left with the financial independence, and I was just left with all of these great like community building skills and homemaking skills, you know. So yeah, I think that it's great to talk about interdependence and the need for care and community care. But if you're the one whose interdependence means that you're unable to financially support yourself in capitalism, you are in a precarious position, you know, and unless you're in a good relationship where there's really with one or more people, you know, it can be a community, it could be a family, it could be a partner, where there's like real open communication and honesty, like it really can all just fall apart. And that sucks. It happened to me and it totally sucks. I don't think it's going to happen again. Like I trust him way more, but who knows, you know, and something else could happen and make him unable to work. And yeah.
Well, I think it's also hard because I'm reading What Can a Body Do, which I left your house with last. Every time I come over here, I leave with a book. It's the best. And she writes about, there's a chapter on time, which is my favorite. And she writes about like functioning, like high functioning versus low functioning.
Right.
And she says that's basically a measure of worth. And it's tied to like, can you support yourself? Can you be independent? Can you work a job? So like there is a lot of shame around being like, okay, I can't support myself and be independent, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, it is hard, like you said, to accept that you need care, but I don't know. I've just been trying to talk about this more because I don't think we should be ashamed of needing care and needing each other and needing support. Like that's just very human, and like that's how humans are. I think it's really unnatural to be expected to be independent. Like that's the abnormal thing, I think. Especially if you look at history, like throughout history, humans are like just, we're this very intensely social species. Like,
yeah. And in fact, I'm thinking about this book, which is right there. If you could grab it right under the Kleenex, the second book down. This is the Russell Barkley book, which I haven't finished, called Executive Functions, What They Are, How They Work, and Why They Evolved. Jesse loves to hate read, which is what we call reading stuff that you hate and just like getting irate and angry about it. I find it enormously anxiety producing. So if I loved to hate read, I would be finished with this book many times over. Instead, I've only read like the first section of it. But even the first section of it just like lays bare exactly what you're saying, Olive, that a lot of the executive functioning paradigm comes precisely from the focus on independence. And he doesn't even, he isn't even apologetic about it or try to hide it or embarrassed about it. Like, he talks about how awful it is for these families to be burdened.
That's always the like, discourse.
To be burdened by these dependent children, and that the reason that we need to care about executive function and the reason that we need to focus on fixing it, right? Fixing executive dysfunction is so that people will not be dependent and burdens on their families and on society. And that, like, and he, this is the guru of executive function. Like, everybody points to him as being like the main guy, and his whole philosophy is founded in this theory that the most important state of being human is to be ruthlessly independent and not to depend on anybody else. And that, I just reject that. I totally reject that. But Olive, I also understand how difficult it is to reject that, given that that's like the whole society that we live in. You know? I don't think it's apocryphal. I sort of looked it up and I haven't gotten to the original source of it, but my daughter told me this story about, I think it was Margaret Mead, the anthropologist, who was asked what's the first sign of human civilization. And she said that the first sign in her mind of human civilization was a healed femur.
Oh yeah, I think I read about that.
Yeah. The idea that like in a human or in most animals, a broken femur is a death sentence if you don't have somebody to take care of you for quite a long time, like to carry you to a place, to like bind up your wounds, to bring you food, to protect you from predators, like. And I just like whether she actually said that or not. I just think it's like a perfect example of like what I think of as what human society is all about, right? Is that we do have to take care of each other. We do need each other. And that's not a bad thing. That is, in fact, at the core of like meaning, it seems to me, in my life.
Yeah.
Right? All right. Yes, Anne 963 says, I think it is so discriminatory not to take into account a person's capabilities, strengths, and weaknesses, for sure. Unfortunately, that's so much not the case in so much of the workplace. Even when they supposedly will accommodate you, like the accommodations are often have nothing to do with what you actually need. It's like somebody else decided what accommodations are available, and then that's it, right? Oh, I think that this was. Oh, I'm sorry. This got interrupted by somebody else's comment. So Olive had said, it's hard to accept that I might need care forever, and my psych experiences have not helped me accept that because they prioritized independence so much. Olive, yeah, I feel you. Like you're exactly right to point to the capitalist mental health paradigm, of which I think the whole executive functioning paradigm is just part, right? Like the point of mental health, the point of whatever is going to facilitate quote unquote wellness is to make you be a productive worker again.
Yeah. Well, supporting yourself is the marker of success.
Of being human almost.
Yeah. That's always in all of these like articles that I read where like parents of like disabled kids are talking about their fears. Like that is the fear that like my kid will not be able to support themselves. And it's like, but why? Why do we have to do that? Like,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess that's sort of what I was getting at when I was saying that, that I don't think that the solution to needing economic security is going to be, for many of us, becoming independent and autonomous in the workplace and financially secure. I don't think that that's going to be the solution. I think the solution is going to be some other kind of configuration of community and family. And I don't know what the answers are, but I'm terribly curious about it and like kind of passionate about thinking about it. Amanda says, Flare Audio makes clear earplugs called Calmer that I wear to my retail job. They dampen noise but aren't full on earplugs. That's great to know, Amanda. Thank you. And 963 says, we are social creatures. Total self-reliance is really a trauma response to being unable to rely on others. Independent, productive units, employees, serve capitalism because we are distilled. Yeah. Like people may think that you're joking when they say when you say independent, productive units, but like think about what those departments in most companies are called. It's called human resources, right? Or even lately I've seen people refer to human capital.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like that's what we are. That's what workers are now. That's what labor is. It's human capital. Like there's brick and mortar factories and there's raw materials and there's energy sources and then there's human capital. It's like awful. But that's what capitalism is all about, right?
Well, and it's easier if you keep everyone really atomized. Then there are no other options.
Right.
You know, it's easier to keep everyone in control and like working.
Exactly.
There aren't other.
Exactly. Amanda says, ooh, that's really interesting. Read The Bitch Is Back. What is that from? Again, I can't really vouch for it. It's an article and I can't really vouch for it because it's been a very long time since I read it. But I think that it was published in the Atlantic Monthly and you might be able to find it there. And there's like I think that there's like a funny image of a woman throwing like.
It's from 2011, The Atlantic.
2011, The Atlantic. All right. And isn't there an image of her like throwing a turkey or something like that at the wall? Like she's just done with the whole holiday thing.
I don't
like,
see
I'm
it.
done.
I don't see a picture of it.
Okay. Anyway, it could
maybe
be.
in like if you read it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, 2011, The Atlantic Monthly, and if you just Google it, you'll find it. Jesse just found it. Julie says, it does seem that we have different personalities during different life stages, for sure. I have. I mean, different life stages, but I also feel like my personality has changed a lot. Like, you never know what the causation is, right? Is the context. Like, I have different kinds of people around me and doing different things in my life.
My personality changed a lot when I stopped drinking heavily every day. Like, I was like, oh, I'm a different person.
Yeah.
Interesting.
For sure. That happened to me a lot. Like, yeah, for sure. Also, the idea of being self-interested is one I've been trying to learn. I'm having such a hard time reading. Lean into in terms of understanding my sexuality or asexuality, which is so complicated coupled with queerness, gender, etc. Yeah, I would say just like, I think that self-interest, I mean, that's the word I used, but I'm not sure if it's exactly the right word. But I do think that there's this paradox around like having a self and being in relationship. Like in order to be in relationship with other people, you have to have a little bit of an autonomous self. But in order to have an autonomous self, you also need to be in relationship with other people. Like, but that like things get cast as selfishness, which I think are often actually just like having good boundaries.
Yeah.
Right. And having a self. Like, I think for many of us, we're just not really meant to have a self. Like, that's a whole unmasking topic too. Olive says, agreed, Anne. I'm not sure what Anne said. Did I miss it? About being right, the trauma response, right. I wish I had recognized that earlier and focused on building community for support rather than trying to generate individual success, which just burned me out. Well, Olive, all I can say is I believe anyway that it's never too late. Like I didn't even really like I can mark the beginning of this part of my life, and there's such a demarcation. But it began when I was 50. And I didn't even get diagnosed or really start to embrace my self-identity as a neurodivergent person until I was 51. But it was at age 50 that I decided to make this major change in my life, which was leaving my first marriage. And so much has happened and so much has changed, and pretty much everything other than my children, really literally other than my children and some other family members, there's really nothing left from my previous life. Like it's like the fulcrum on which my life tips now. And everything is so much better now. I mean, there were many, many wonderful things about my previous life. But they were sort of like in a context that was unmanageable. Right. And now there's many wonderful things about my life that's also in a context that works. Mama Sophia, I'm sorry that when I wait too long, I don't actually know what the comments are relating to, but this may be relating to the Bitch is Back article. Mama Sophia says, that's so interesting. A wholeness, not a deficit. If that's in relation to thinking about menopause in a different way, like let's just get rid of deficit talk about natural states of human being, right? Like, yeah. Julie says, I just missed a workshop in another ADHD community on ADHD and hormones and some guidance on it. Julie says, I feel I go back and forth prioritizing my studio practice or my home or another project. Yeah. And I think that it's fine. For me, what feels good is like knowing that I have limited bandwidth and energy, as you were saying, right? And that I can make choices, that I can decide that right now it feels really important for my house to be somewhat tidy because I'm feeling super overwhelmed by the sensory experience of the mess. So I'm going to focus on that for a while. But now I'm starting to feel itchy to make art again. And so I'm going to focus on that for a while and let the house go until like, yeah.
I think like a huge part of rejecting executive function for me was just like learning that I have limits and like learning where they are.
Yeah.
Because I think for like most of my life, I just tried to push through everything. And that's like where I had my worst kind of like breakdowns and meltdowns and like just stress, was just like not even being aware that like I had limits and like not wanting to accept that. And now that I like have accepted that and I'm learning like where it is and what it feels like when I get close to one.
Yeah.
Which is like, it's hard because I have, I think, really like dissociated a lot from just a lot of stuff in my life. And now I'm like learning how to like, how things feel in my body. And that has been like a really huge thing for me. And then like once you can be like, oh, here's my limit, like I'm about to come up against it, then you can like set boundaries. But it's kind of hard to do that if you can't,
if you don't even know what your limits are.
You don't know where it is. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And I think that both you and I mean, we talked about this a little bit, used alcohol as a way to like push through.
Yeah.
Right. Like rather than understanding that we had limits and that it was okay to acknowledge them. Right. Yeah. I mean, that's sort of what the executive functioning paradigm wants us to not do. It wants us to not acknowledge that we have limits, or to frame our limits as failures or
you can do anything
weaknesses
if you try hard enough and like
you just have the right mindset.
You can't do anything. Like,
yeah,
that's almost like sacrilegious to say in like our culture, but like you can't do anything that you want if you try hard enough. Like, and that's fine. That's okay.
Exactly.
You know.
Exactly. And you know, there are some things that you can do. But if you don't respect your limits and your bandwidth and your sensitivities, sometimes you can't even do those things. Like, and so that's where the sort of shame spiral comes from, is like, even the things you can do, you can't do when you're in total meltdown burnout, you know, or you're drunk all the time, you know, or both.
Although I feel like I did a lot
more when
when I was drunk all the time, because it numbed me a lot. I think I used it a lot for that. And then when I was sober, I had to like feel everything, and I was like, oh no, this is hard.
This is really hard. Yeah. Anne says glorification of independence is ableism. Yeah, 100%. Yeah. I think that Russell Barkley would just scoff at the whole concept of ableism and say that that's just like social justice warrior snowflake talk. No, I mean, for real, he would. Danny G says, well, this is good timing to see this stream. I was just looking at the dozen things on my floor that I emptied from my bag yesterday, and today is too much to deal with. Yes. Yeah,
that happens to me once or several times a week, where I'm just like, nah, I can't deal with that. Just leave it there.
Right. Leave it for a while or forever or whatever. Yeah. I mean, I am somebody who is very overwhelmed by clutter and mess. So it's better for me to not live in clutter and mess. But I try to like keep one space in my home. It's usually the bedroom, because there's just nothing. There's literally just a king size bed in my bedroom and one bedside table. And that's it. So like, it doesn't really get very messy. Like, there aren't any surfaces to get cluttered. And even if it's the floor, I can't see the floor from the bed. You know, so if I have one place that can just feel visually calm, that's usually enough.
We have, we're calling them shit rooms because we're still unpacking after like moving. And so we just have like one room that's like, we just like throw whatever.
Yes.
When they're like, it's in the shit room. Like, I don't know. Like,
yeah. My daughter also has this, this notion, and I don't think it's hers, and she would be able to give credit to it. It's probably somebody on Tumblr, because she's very into Tumblr. But basically the idea is like, put a basket underneath your messes. Wherever a mess accumulates, just put a basket under it.
Yeah, or like a bin. I love bins.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So she is like, she lives with a housemate who comes home, and the first thing her housemate does is take off her shoes and socks and just like leaving them by the door. And so my daughter was like, we just need a bin where you can put your socks, your dirty socks. Perfect. Until it's time you have a load to do the laundry, and we need some shelves to put shoes on. But like, don't stress. Like, that's okay. That's totally fine.
Work with your whatever you're doing. We have so I was telling you about the doom bag thing on TikTok, which is like a trend, I guess, now. Like, you know, when you have like a bag or a box that you just like throw all your documents and stuff in, but you don't know how to like organize them, or you can't, or whatever. And they're calling those doom bags. Right. And like, I think it's funny because like, well, like we had a situation recently where my partner like needed some like document from like a long time ago, and we didn't know where it was, and they pulled out their doom bag and like pulled everything out, and it was in there, and it wasn't like organized, but like, you know, and they were like, thank God for my doom bag, because like
exactly.
So like, it doesn't matter, it doesn't have to be perfectly organized. Just like put it somewhere.
Exactly.
And, like, you know, figure it out later.
Exactly. I remember once when I was sort of developing this idea of divergent design on Instagram, somebody in the comments said, I just don't know what to do about the fact, like, yeah, that all sounds nice, but my family, I've got kids and a partner, and they're like so messy, and they're constantly changing their clothes and leaving their dirty clothes all over the house, and I don't know what to do about it. And I was like, well, how about you just put a laundry basket in every room?
Yeah.
And then even if they don't put the dirty clothes into the laundry basket, which would be nice, it's at least easier for you to do it. And she was like, head explode. Like, I could have a laundry basket in my living room. I was like, you can have whatever you want in your living room and in your dining room and in the bathroom and the bed, you know, like you can put them wherever you want. You can do anything that you want. Yeah. That's the whole point.
That's so smart.
Uh, Princess Bride says, I didn't even realize that I had a problem until my therapist ex-husband started pointing out flaws. Yeah. He didn't identify them as ADHD related or having to do with executive dysfunction. He just complained. My whole childhood and schooling worked because I never even tried to do things the way anyone else did. Everyone else in my life just said that I was weird.
Mm-hmm.
And I became very okay with being weird.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I do think that like one of the things that you have to embrace, but that is also joyful and wonderful to embrace is just being weird.
Yeah.
Not being normal and not being mainstream.
Self-acceptance.
Self-acceptance.
It's better than self-love, I think.
Yeah.
Because you don't have to love yourself to accept yourself.
Exactly.
So. But
on the whole, I think that I would far rather be weird and outside of the mainstream. Like, I don't particularly want to be mainstream. I mean, I really feel much more for people who really do want to, because I think that you have a harder time getting to a place of liberation if what you really want is to be normal.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's just not going to happen.
Well, yeah. And then the executive function thing it becomes a problem because
right.
You have to do that to be normal.
Yeah.
But if you just change the goal
exactly.
and the expectations, then
exactly. Exactly. Yay to being weird for sure. Have any of you tried bullet journaling?
Mm-hmm.
Can I have tried bullet journaling?
Yeah.
I found it turned out to be more.
It's complicated.
It was too complicated.
I was like, wow, this is a lot of. I have to make a whole key, like symbols and stuff. I do kind of like. I guess it's like a modified. Like I have like a lot of lists. Like I have a day list, and then I have like other stuff that I could do like this week maybe, and then I have like a broader.
Yeah.
Kind of goals, but it's not a journal or anything.
Yeah, that's interesting because if I were going to say, are there any like sort of hacks that I have come up with that have worked for me? It's basically that. Like I do it on my phone.
Like lots of lists.
I used to do it in my notes app, and now I'm trying to learn Obsidian, which is like a knowledge management. I'm not sure that I'm going to stick with it though. Other people use Notion. Mm-hmm. I may just end up going back to my notes app. Honestly,
I use my notes app. Yeah, and the sticky notes on my computer.
That's
and I was using Notability, which I like too. But I also like will say that my to-do lists are like really flexible.
Yeah.
So I'll be like this is what I can do today, and then I'll do like one or two things, and then if something is on the list, I guess this is a bullet journal like tactic, but if something is on the list for like too many days, then I'm like I like rethink like if I really need to do it, and then I just like erase it or like
totally
move it around.
Totally. I make a new list for each day, and I actually track the sunrise and sunset and the temperature. I started doing that because of the garden, like what the weather was going to be, but it's also kind of fun to like watch the days get longer and then watch like right now we just passed the solstice and the days have been exactly the same length. Like the sunrise and the sunset has been at exactly the same time for a couple of days. But then under that, I have appointments, and appointments to me are things that I absolutely have to show up to, or like it would be bad.
Like this is an appointment.
Like this is an appointment. Like today, studio time at 9:00, which is a commitment that I have within Divergent Design Studios. I host studio time on Thursday morning, so that's here. Live stream is here, and then I have an important meeting with some other people on Zoom at 4:00. Like those are my appointments, and that's all that goes there, and that's all that goes in my calendar app. Are the actual things that I actually have to show up for. And then below that is to do, and that's just like you're saying, sort of a running list of stuff that I would like to be doing and that should get done. And but in any given day, like it depends on what my bandwidth is and what my interests are, and like how urgent things feel, whether they move up or down. And then a little bit further down, I do have a daily checklist and a weekly checklist of sort of probably things that would be considered executive functioning skills. And some of them are really basic, but I forget to do them if I don't put them on my list, like taking my meds. Like I take an antacid medication every day, and sometimes I forget to take it.
Mm-hmm.
But if I put it on my list and cross it off, then I remember to take it. And part of it is also just like, I do these things every day, damn it, and I should get to cross them off a list.
Yeah.
Like feeding the dogs, walking
good.
the dogs, like those things are on my list too. I'm going to do them whether they're on the list or not, but I like to cross them off. And so that's a daily and weekly thing, and not everything gets done every single day or every single week. But even if they don't get done, it means that I can look back. Like the weekly stuff is mostly cleaning.
Yeah.
And I can look back and say, oh, I didn't clean the bathrooms last week. So probably that should be the priority this week. You know, I haven't vacuumed in 3 weeks. Maybe I'm going to like make that be a priority, you know?
Yeah, that's
so it just becomes a record.
Hard to keep track of.
And then at the very bottom, I have what I call, well, I don't call it this. This is after, I don't remember what his name is, but his YouTube channel is called Struthless. Do you know what his name is? He talked about daily micro journaling in his notes app instead of getting onto social media. And I'm not on social media anymore almost at all.
I was doing that a little bit.
But I don't do it every single day, but I have a space at the bottom of it where sometimes it just really helps me, even if it's just a sentence or two. Like I'm feeling really stressed out about this, and I just write a couple of sentences, and sometimes that helps. Yeah. It's not really a journal exactly. It's just kind of like
keep track of your feels.
Some things about my feels, and sometimes I find that writing through an idea helps me develop it. You know, that whole like learning by doing. Yeah. I find learning by writing. So anyway, this list, which I'm sure you can't see.
That's much more extensive than mine.
Yeah, well, it's like I've been doing this for a year and a half now, and it is the thing that keeps me on track.
Yeah,
the only thing.
I don't have a list of, I just can't. If it's not written down somewhere, I don't know.
I forget everything.
What is happening?
And the reason I put it on my phone instead of in a bullet journal is because I have my phone with me almost all the time, and so it's just always there, you know.
I thought of something else that I do. Like, I'm not as organized about chores, but like
I
will kind of use chores as like a break from writing. Like if I'm doing a lot of, or like work on the computer or whatever. So I'll be like, okay, I'll do this for an hour, and then I'll like go put the laundry in or something. Yeah. And like I'll go outside and check on my plants or like whatever. And like I kind of like flip back and forth in that way, and like use them, and like using chores as a break has helped me, I guess.
I totally do the same thing, Jessie. And in fact,
you were saying that it's like this ritual kind of thing that you've turned like laundry into or whatever. I
do think that to the extent that you can develop so-called executive functioning skills into pleasurable rituals, that it can be helpful. And I mean, I like to joke about how I used to go smoke a cigarette to take a break from writing, and now I hang my laundry, which is both healthier and gets the laundry done.
And I listen to podcasts when I have to do like stuff like that, which makes it not boring.
Right.
And then it's also like I get a treat, podcast treat.
Exactly.
I don't know.
I feel like there have been a ton of comments while we were just chatting away. Let's see. If anybody's still out there, I'm not even sure that anybody is, but still, Amanda Gall says, I think the basket idea might be from How to Keep House While Drowning. Oh, you were just recommended that to me. That came up in your Discord, right?
To me, and then
the author, like shames cleaning, and one of the things she recommends is putting baskets everywhere. That's very possible. Because the mess is going to be there anyway, but might as well be in a basket, so it's slightly more pleasing to the eye. 100%. I'm very much about the appearance of cleanliness versus actual cleanliness. Like, that's the reason that I have a really busy and colorful kitchen floor, because I never mop it, because you can't see, if you can't see the dirt, it's so not smart. Dirty. And kitchens are just awful that way, you know. Varsha says, just popped in here to tell you that I wrote you a little comment perspective on your previous vlog video. Marta, I tend to see your videos late and missed interacting real time. I want to keep up with these cool videos that you and Jesse on real time so bad. Loving them so far. You know, Varsha, let us know in the comments what might be a better time, because I just sort of picked this randomly, 1:00 on Thursday. It's possible that I know that it's difficult because we have so many people in Europe. We also have people in Australia. We have people all, I mean, it's like a wonderful problem to have, right?
Yeah.
To have people from so many parts of the world, but finding one time that works can be difficult. But I'd love to know at least what would really work for you. Amanda says, one time the notes app synced incorrectly, so I lost a ton of notes. From like the last 30 days and had a breakdown. So now I use Google Keep for important stuff. It's laggy and not as good as notes, but I'm scared to use notes now. I feel that. Yeah. Like I said, I have moved to Obsidian, but I'm not sure that I'm going to stick with Obsidian. I'm finding it too difficult maybe for my analog brain to understand how to use. Kent says, writer Carol, who invented bullet journaling, who has ADHD, his version is pretty simple. The Instagram example are very complicated. Yeah, that's my understanding, Kent, is that the original idea was pretty simple and that it was developed by an ADHD person in a way that would probably work for us, and that, as with everything, it got complicated.
Oh, because people have, like, now they sell their own versions, or they, like, you know,
right,
they design bullet journal pages and like sell them.
Exactly. Reagan says, to me, journals are for thoughts and feelings, and agendas are for appointments and to-do goals. Yeah, just a different way I use the words. Exactly. And Amanda says, yes, not only appearance of cleanliness, Marta, but utility. Like, the clothes are on a chair for a reason, too. I will not put them in the closet, but I can appear clean by basketing them up. Exactly. Farsha says, no, the time is just fine. I just think I'm overwhelmed by my overflowing list of things to keep up with. I am constantly trying to purge things all the time, to constantly let go of things. I feel that, Varsha, 100%. Yeah. Julie says, appearance of cleanliness. Wait till I come over with my white gloves. Well, your white gloves would be like, I don't even walk in the kitchen with my socks on. I wear Birkenstocks inside the house all the time. Well, mostly because I can't stand the feeling of grit on my feet.
Oh, that's funny. I hate having shoes on anywhere.
I can't stand the feeling of like grittiness, and my floors are very dirty. And you know, the thing, this is getting back to your point about how this is just endless. It's Sisyphean. I actually vacuum most of the time once a week, and while I don't mop my kitchen floor very often, I do sweep it fairly regularly, and still the floor just feels oogie to me all the time. Which is why I have to wear, even through socks, I don't like the feeling of it. Like, this is one of my weirds. I have a lot of weird clothing sensitivities, and that's one of them. So that's why I wear Birkenstocks all the time. But anyway, your white gloves would no longer be white if you came and touched any of the surfaces in my home, for sure. All right. Well, I don't know if we did what we set out to do, but it seems like it's been a really engaged conversation between us and with the folks in the chat. So I hope that that has been helpful or interesting or something for you. But I guess just to sum up, for me, is just this idea that the executive functioning paradigm is precisely what leads to executive dysfunction, like counterintuitively. But when you reject the entire paradigm and embrace a different way of being in life, which includes possibly being dependent on other people and relying on community and not having the kind of financial independence and security that we're supposed to have. Not being efficient, not grinding, not being as productive as we're supposed to be. That when you reject that and start to understand your limits, start to rest, start to work in your own rhythms and in your own time, that you actually will end up being like, to the extent that productivity and efficiency matter to you, or finishing things, especially like art projects or creative projects, you'll get better at it. And the messes will be less.
Or you'll be less upset
by them. Right. Exactly. One or the other.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to go look really quickly at the rest of these. People are still commenting. We're an hour and 40 minutes in, and people are still commenting. This is amazing. Kent says, I can't stand stuff on my feet. I'm with you, Kent. Spiral Nerd says, I have a field notes on being human journal that's kind of a chaotic catch of all ideas, micro journaling, etc. I love that. Spiral Nerd. Varsha said it also has tags. Wait, I think I must have missed the beginning of this. So it's a cool way to categorize notes differently. I prefer this as opposed to the sections concept on OneNote. Once I put a note in a OneNote, it's out of sight, out of mind. Yeah, I'm not exactly sure what you're referring to. I think I missed something, Varsha, but I do think that to the extent that you rely on some sort of a note or a list system or note-taking system, for me, the key has been that it has to be instantly available. Right? Like, that's why I went away from, like, I love physical journals and writing in them. Like, I'm a big fan. You can probably see over here all these Moleskine notebooks and things that I have. I'm just trying to point to them here in the cubbies behind me, but I would never have it with me when I needed it.
Yeah.
So that's why it's all in my phone. I hate to admit how much I'm always with my phone, but I am always with my phone.
That's just how
it's always there.
How we human now.
Exactly. Amanda says this was fun and helpful and educational and holding to. I'm so glad, Amanda. Thank you for letting us know that. Julie says, I can mop the floor with my feet and a wet towel.
Does that make you feel
just the thought
squidgy?
Of that is making yay to being weird. But yes, yay to your weirdness.
Yeah.
And you're welcome anytime that you want to come and mop my kitchen floor with your feet in a wet towel. But I'm going to do it with shoes tied right up and a mop and a bucket, except I don't even do that. Anne says, yay. Thank you, everyone. All right. Well, thanks, everybody, for being here. Yes, it's much easier to control F than physically search a journal. That's also true. Thanks, everyone, for being here. This has been really fun. And I have no idea what we're doing next week, but I hope you'll all be able to join us. And go watch my vlog. Look out for Jesse's vlog. Lots of cool stuff. Come on Sunday and listen to me and Joel talk about chronic pain and teach you one of our favorite summer recipes that's really easy. And thanks for all your support. Go sign up for our Patreon if you can, if that's sustainable for you. Thank you, Moira. This is such a lovely space. Varsha says she's talking about Simple Note. Thanks, everybody. And Moira, really quickly again, go find that that live stream on shame. You might find that really helpful. Okay? All right. Bye. We need to get one of those, like...
Are you still on?
Yeah, we are. But I feel like we need to get one of those timer things at the end so that, like, we're actually done, but people can still be putting things in the chat box.
Yeah.
Like an outro.
Oh, yeah.
We need to work on that. Yay. Amanda says, hope to see you next week. Your vlog is open on my computer. Thank you, Amanda. I appreciate it. Leave me a comment. All right. Now I really am going to press finish. Bye. End broadcast.